minutes, 9 minutes each. Justin Tomlinson.
Thank you, Dr. Huck, and a double thank you for your late substitution that we're all very grateful for this morning. And it's a pleasure to follow the Honourable Member for Motherwell, who clearly demonstrated a real passion on this very, very important subject. And I think her constituents would warmly recognise that she is a real champion for those who need a voice in this area. And I do pay genuine tribute to her. And I also pay tribute to the Minister, who I know will respond in full. He's immersed himself in the details of this role and has always shown himself willing to engage with the stakeholders. One of the things I think we would all agree is there is a wealth of knowledge and expertise in the local and national organisations, and that is something I know the Minister is passionate to utilise wherever possible, and in his time as a Minister that has come through very clearly. And I also want to pay tribute to the local and national organisations up and down the country who provide advice and support for what are often complex and daunting layers of support that are potentially available. I know certainly, for example, Tim Saint of Swindon Carers does a huge amount of work in our community to help guide people to make sure they are getting access to the support. I know during my time as a Minister, I was surprised to see how many people miss out on the support that we have all voted for in one form or another to give them, and often because they are faced with a very complex and daunting system. But we have made progress. Under PIP, including the legacy benefits of DLA and AA, we're now spending £12.5 billion more in real terms, helping those with disabilities or long-term health conditions. Under the old legacy system of DLA, only 16% of claimants would actually access the highest rate of support. A few years ago, that had now reached 33%. And in some health conditions, in particular mental health conditions, you were now 6 times more likely to access the higher rate of benefits. So we are heading very much in the right direction, and there is further opportunities to turbo speed improvements with the forthcoming white paper. And I think there's 2 key lessons that the government can focus on around speed and specialisation. So first of all, on the speed, I think there are lessons that can be learnt from the very welcome changes of special rules for terminal illness, where we were able to apply a policy change that was co-designed by stakeholders, their policy teams, end users, people with real-life experience. And if we use those same principles, I think we can widen the severe conditions criteria within the PIP system, removing up to 300,000 unnecessary assessments or reassessments each year. The principle of this is that you would look at specific conditions, and you could then say we can be fairly confident of the trajectory of that condition, that we can then set in term a timetable of support. And for those where perhaps their condition has changed quicker than expected, there would still always be the option to then have a light touch assessment to speed up the increased rate of support that they could access. There is a sort of principle around this that already takes place both in universal credit and in the industrial injuries disability benefit, and you would have an independent panel that could look, and an example of that would be around MND. I cannot understand what would be the point of actually putting somebody with MND through an assessment. We can be fairly confident of the deterioration of health conditions, that we could then put in place an automatic right to support with that backstop, that if somebody's condition deteriorates sadly quicker, then a light touch assessment could then adjust to the higher level of support much quicker. By then removing 300,000 people out a year, you've then got more resources available to speed up the process for those that would go through the more standard traditional route of getting that. During COVID, it made sure that we kept the gateway open for new entrants, and it was a tribute to the staff down the country that the disability benefits continued. We were using video and telephone assessments. A further benefit of that is it allows for greater specialisation for assessors. because rather than relying on the fixed number of staff in each geographical location, if you have a particular health condition, you could then be assigned wherever that is in the country via either telephone or video, and that then helps on the point around making sure that the assessments are right first time and not having to go through an appeals process further down the line. And I know that those broad themes aren't being considered as part of the white paper, but I think they're a real win-win, and they're probably areas that, regardless of which political background you are, you can rally around. So I certainly know from my time of working with our very knowledgeable stakeholders and policymakers, there would be a huge amount of support for them. And a broader point I want to make is not everything is black and white. And as much as I admire the passion and the drive of that speech, there is a presumption that everything the government does is terrible, and everything that the Scottish government does is a good thing. And I say this as I have a brother who is a very proud Labour Party supporter, another brother who is an SNP supporter. I have a sister who is sort of a Lib Dem Conservative, and I've got a cousin who's Green, so we cover all of the bases. And so I was very much brought up that it isn't black and white. And the Scottish government, to their credit, identified that we could and should have made changes to special rules of terminal illness and made changes to PIP, main disability benefit. Now, they've had challenges. They have had hopes to have completed both those tasks many years before, and it's proved a lot more complex when you start to unravel the complicated machinery behind those benefits. But in my former life, with the interministerial meetings with Scottish officials and Scottish ministers, who were always a great pleasure to work with, and I absolutely admired their end goal, they did have that presumption that it was completely broken, had to be completely changed, and sometimes, therefore, wouldn't listen to the stakeholders and those policy experts in those disability health charities who wanted changes, but not necessarily the changes where the Scottish government has settled. So as an example, there is a principle that the Scottish government doesn't like assessors. And I understand that with a lot of media coverage around the earlier years in particular of PIP. But there is a reason why the DLA, only 16% of claimants got highest rate of support compared to 33% under PIP, is because many people who navigate the system are least well equipped to do so. And therefore, where you are relying on a system where, in effect, only their evidence self-supplied is their only sort of case of getting it, whereas assessors actually tease out additional things and fill in those gaps. And that is why we've gone from 16% to 33%. Yes, who carry out assessors have at least 2 years' experience. They come from health professional background. However, the point is right, is they're not necessarily specialists in areas. You know, if you go to a GP and they're the initial gatekeeper of the NHS, doesn't mean they're experts in anything, they're all a specialist. Now, because you generally have 5 or 6 assessors in each geographical location, you can expect between the collective knowledge of those 5 or 6 would cover every single health issue. But through the introduction of telephone video assessments, you can refer people. That is what I'm pushing for in there. So the point is the assessors isn't broken, but it needed improving. And that is both what the UK government and the Scottish government were looking to do. I'm urging caution to the Scottish government around relying too much solely on the claimants, because not all the claimants are in a position to argue their case, to understand the conditions. And it's not even just a case of that, it's also being unaware of additional health conditions. So my point earlier about those with mental health conditions now being 6 times more likely to get access to the highest rate of PIP. Many people don't realise their mental well-being is being impacted by their physical health condition. So they would enter the PIP system thinking, my physical health condition is impacting on me, I fill in all these sort of bits on this and answer those questions. But then the assessor's questions around how this is impacting your mental well-being then begins to identify additional challenges that either they are aware of or have just got used to and taken for granted. And that then gives them the additional points that has allowed them to then enter the higher rate. So these are areas where we have to do the same around the special rules for terminal illness. That we extended that from 6 months to 12 months, working with hospices, the health and disability charities, and GPs. And the Scottish Government, with very good intentions, tried to create a system where it was automatic. But then also realise you can't just give everybody automatic, because all of us are terminally ill in terms of nobody lives forever. So you then have to put conditions in, and then you've inadvertently created a more complex system when it would just be easier, like Northern Ireland did, when they said, oh, actually, the UK government on this occasion, having listened to the stakeholders and health and disability charities, might be onto something, and in this case, we would then look to do that.
Within 9. If he wishes, the former minister, sorry, if he wishes to make including sentence, I'll allow, but we do have other backbenchers.
Understood. I find, in conclusion, Dr. Hutt, I just urge the Minister as well, keep his laser eye focus around disability employment, making sure that we provide support, not just for individuals seeking work, but for employers. The majority of people with disabilities get that during their working age, and we need to make sure that employers, particularly small and medium-sized employers, are equipped to support people with changing health conditions. Thank you.